Ahoy ahoy to all you smooth sailors out there, and welcome aboard the DeckTales podcast. I'm your host and captain, Sammy Catlin, and this is the show where we set sail into the captivating world of ship life. Most of the time, delving into the best and worst experiences of the incredible crew members who called the open sea their workplace, but I'm open to the odd exception as well. Whether we're navigating stunning destinations to weathering unexpected storms, our guests all have stories to tell that will make you laugh, gasp, and maybe even shed an unexpected tear. So if you're a seasoned cruiser eagerly awaiting your next embarkation, or just curious as to what goes on at sea, DeckTales is your boarding pass to a world of nautical narratives. My guest today is Mr. David PalFreeman, or as I and many others call him, JD, a former cruise ship photographer and shore excursion manager. JD was and is always up for a laugh, but he definitely had his guard up during this episode for fear of leaking some embarrassing content that might have come back to bite him, no matter how hard I probed. Still, he was good for a few stories regardless. So let's anchor up and have a little listen.
Hello, mate.
Hello, John, my brother from another mother. How are
Hello,
you?
mate. Yeah, not bad. Not bad. How are you?
We got there in the end. We've had to reschedule a couple of times. Yeah. Well, we nearly had to reschedule today, but we managed to get it done.
Yeah. How's tricks? How's the journey?
The journey, the journey of life?
Experience today, yeah.
Oh, just, your typical trip back. I nearly jumped on the slow train from Didcot to Paddington, but then I was like, oh, wait, no, this is stopping at every single stop. So I jumped off.
Nobody wants to jump on the slow train, let's be honest.
No, so yeah, managed to get on the right train that was like leaving 5 minutes later, and that makes like 2 stops on its way. But yeah, commuting's never fun, is it? It's just as it is.
So what are we talking about then?
Well, the concept we're talking. Have you seen University Challenge?
Yeah.
It's nothing like that.
Oh dear. When we kind of penciled this in, I was trying to wrap my brains as to what I could talk about, to be honest. Mm-hmm. It's quite a long time ago, and it's scary that, like, when you think about it, how far back it was.
Well, I was born in the 80s, as were you.
different ends of that 80s era, though, right?
Yeah, but still in the same decade, my friend.
So do you know what? And I mean, it's like we were saying on WhatsApp. I was on the Imagination in 2000. And you joined the Paradise in 2009.
No.
Was it not?
Wait, the Imagination with Carnival?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was on the Paradise, but you weren't on the Paradise. We worked together. Yeah. But we worked together.
They were both fantasy class ships, so it was
yes.
And the Imagination was retro, to say the least, in 2000. So yeah. I can only imagine what the Paradise was like in 2009.
2009, 2010. Yeah. I mean, our uniforms look like they were from the early 90s.
Yeah. It sounds about right as well.
What do you call it? The wishy-washy track pants that, whenever you walked anywhere, you could just hear them coming a mile away.
Shell suits, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. You look like you were in Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I was talking to somebody the other day who got fired on the same ship as me a month after I got fired. And he didn't remember me getting fired. He just, completely was always drunk. But then
at Carnival.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think at Carnival, though, the thing was, if your face didn't fit, they would find a way to get you fired. Well, it wasn't that hard to get fired at Carnival.
Okay, there's a story there.
For the record, I didn't get fired at Carnival, but I know a lot of people that did.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, your face doesn't fit Carnival, then they'll find a way to get rid of you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how many years ago you worked for them?
24 years now.
24 years?
Which is scary. Yeah, it was 2000. That's when I joined Carnival in 2000. That was when I first started at sea. And I worked on the Imagination, the Carnival Victory, and the Triumph. In 2000.
all fantasy class ships.
No, sorry, excuse me. No, the Triumph was Destiny class. The Victory was a flagship, again, Destiny class, if I remember rightly. Anyway,
how big are those ones? Like passengers wise?
Passengers, I think it's 3,000 passengers.
Oh, okay.
Something in that region, anyway.
That's half the size, if you think about it, of the new ones now.
Yeah.
They your eyes just went. Wow.
Do you know what? I mean, I know that people that you've had on have spoken about the different facilities and amenities on different ships, go-kart tracks, climbing walls. All
Bowling
started with water
alleys.
slides, really, bowling alleys. That kind of, I mean, on the one hand, that stuff doesn't really bother me. I would never go on a ship just because it's got a go-karting track on it or anything.
No, it doesn't appeal
And
to you.
no, but at the same time, going on a big ship doesn't necessarily put me off either. Like I enjoyed big ships, I enjoyed small ships. I didn't really have a partiality to either.
Was there
Um,
always like longer queues on the bigger ship because there was more people?
I mean, when you were going for food and things like that, and again, I know that other people have talked about the fact that you could go and eat in passenger areas when you had a certain role on a ship.
Yeah.
Yes, again, it depended what time you went at, and there was always times that you would recommended not to go, and it's like anything else. It's like being
Yeah, but
back home.
there's more supply because there's more demand, so it's
Yeah,
kind of evened out, isn't it?
exactly, exactly.
Just so we go back a bit, we obviously didn't work together with Carnival. We worked together on the Thompson Destiny. What
Yeah,
was in 2007?
7.
I don't know because I did two contracts with them,
Yeah,
and it wasn't my first one. I don't think that I worked with you because I worked with. Wait, who? You weren't with Gove, were you?
yeah, I was. Yeah, yeah.
So Gove
So
came back.
this is the thing, and I was talking to my missus about this earlier on when we were
Mm,
talking about I was going to do this.
yeah,
We only worked together for 4 weeks.
is that
That's
all we
it.
did?
That's it. I was on the Destiny for 4 weeks, maybe 5 at a push, and
Mm,
then I went to the Spirit for the summer, which was I think was always in their plans. But also, I only worked for Thompson for all right. You can call it one contract, or you can split it into two over the two ships.
I can't
But I
believe
was
that
only there for one contract.
you was there with us for 1 month.
Yeah,
Well, obviously you've stuck in my brain this spell. You've made an impression.
yeah.
Made some kind of an impression.
In Laura's words earlier on, she said that, what did she say? She said something like she'd worked with people for longer that she'd forgotten about.
Oh wow. That's a very
So, yeah,
backhand. That's a kind of backhanded compliment.
there's a compliment there somewhere, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's weirdly worded, but I'll take that. I mean, yeah, there's people that I worked with for a long time, and they're almost impossible to get hold of. There's people that I worked with for longer than you by 1 month.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, 4 weeks, Thompson Destiny.
oh,
And we did, I think we were doing Canaries runs or something like that.
oh,
Uh,
so then it was my first contract because Gove was on my first contract.
yeah, so we were on embarkation quite often
Yeah,
together on embark days and things like that.
in
It
Tenerife.
was it was weird. Was Tenerife? Was Thompson because any other cruise line that I worked for, Shorex were nowhere near embarkation, debarkation. But at
Really,
Thompson, we had a role to play in that. So
everyone
yeah,
did.
but
But
yeah, exactly.
I quite enjoyed our embarkation disembarkation shifts in that
It was interesting at times.
it was. No, me and Gove, we reminisced over that with great what's the word? Nostalgia.
Gusto.
Great gusto. There was a lot of skylarking going on in that thing because you'd be waiting for hours for the coach to rock up and
Yeah,
then the passengers get off and then you're like, finally, they're
yeah.
here. And he'd rush
I
on.
remember getting into any grief with elastic bands
Oh
in
yeah.
on embarkation at one
Yeah,
point.
you know that scene from that film's the TV show Spaced when they're all ducking and diving and doing
Yeah,
that comes to mind with elastic bands in the terminal in
that
Tenerife.
was quite funny. The security guards didn't find it quite as funny, but
No,
we all did.
they really didn't like us.
They were very serious people, the security, and I think that's Tenerife, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, they tend to be
Like,
quite serious people, security for good reason.
it's funny that really they need to lighten up a little. But yeah, it was quite funny. But
But yeah, so I've got a
yeah,
list of questions. We can go through them, or we can
yeah, go
just
for it.
talk and you can just read them off. How does it
Go
work back
for
to
it.
you? Well, depends on what stirs in your brain. So you were in the industry for a total of how many years?
So I started when I was started in 2000 and I finished in 2010.
And you were
They were
always a ship photographer? Oh no, sorry, you just said shore
so
excursion.
so I would say I split my ship career or shipboard career in two. So for the first 5 years or so, I was a photographer, and then I spent a couple of years bouncing around at home, and then came back and did 5 years as excursion manager.
So you had a couple of years in between, kind of going, "Oh, what do I do? What does my life mean?"
Yeah, yeah. I tried
Oh,
holiday repping, that wasn't quite doing it for me, and the rest of the time was just bouncing around customer service jobs, really, really boring stuff. But yeah,
better pay.
not really. No,
No?
No, when you take into account taxes and everything else. So
Whereabouts were you holiday repping?
Cyprus, I did like 3 months, 4 months maybe out in Cyprus.
So you were
So
like getting the punters into different bars and clubs?
no, it wasn't even that
Not that
good,
kind
to
of
be
repping.
honest. No, it was just quite excursion based and yeah, airport runs and that sort of stuff. Like I said, it was pretty boring. It was nice to be living in Cyprus,
Which
nice
part of
climate and
Cyprus?
everything else. But Paphos.
Paphos. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I didn't mind working land based abroad, but yeah, I preferred life at sea. There's
Well,
no doubt about it.
you got your sea legs over and done with now, though, because you've been on land for what, 24
Yeah,
years?
yeah. So I met my wife
14 years,
in
sorry, because you finished in
yeah,
2010.
14 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I met my wife in 2009 on a ship called the Black Prince. She was
Ooh.
in the show team. I was a Shorex manager, and yeah, we just kind of decided to make a go of it. And the rest is history. There are now 2 kids and a house and everything else, that goes along with it. So,
Congratulations. What's the wife's name?
Laura,
Laura. She's listening in, folks. She's got her ear
she's
pressed up
she's
against the wall.
she's gone in the that's the thing. Before we started, I was set up in the living room
Oh, okay, you moved.
because the kids are asleep upstairs, so I didn't want to do it in the office. And
Fair
then
enough.
she said, "How long are you going to be?" And I said, "Probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours, the way that we talk."
Yeah.
And she sort of said, "No chance." So I had to swap and come in the kitchen, working, do this in the kitchen rather than so she's got access to the TV and stuff. So
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah,
When
it's
when you came
understandable.
when you came to London last, well, do you remember the pub we went to?
Yeah, which one? There was one. The one we met in was there was the landlord was he was from Leeds, wasn't he?
Oh yeah. That's like my local. I always go there.
Yeah.
The
And then
Enterprise.
we went down to Camden.
Yeah, they're basically both in Camden. Well, we went in the Enterprise in Camden. I've met
Hmm.
so many. I go there on my own, just to get away from the desk sometimes.
Yeah.
Watch the football, have a few beers, have a smoke, sit on the bench, and I just get talking to so many lovely randoms there. It's a good vibe, and I
Yeah.
never have to be with somebody to go. Do you know what I mean? It's lovely.
Yeah, yeah, I get
It's such a cool place, and I meet
you.
lovely, lovely people that end up going, "Hey, what are you doing? Let's go out here. Let's go there. Let's go to this place. Let's go to that place." So yeah, a couple of those. And last night was a pub called the White Horse in Abingdon,
Okay.
and I was just there with my friend visiting him, and oh yeah, I think we did 9 pints in the end. And then we got home, and he cracked open a keg.
Oh wow. I can't drink like that anymore.
I was honestly just like bringing up liquid when I got to bed. Like I did what they call a TC. You know what that is?
Tactical channel probably, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a tactical just before going to bed. I mean, do you know what? This is the weird thing. It's never left me, this ability to just go bleh, and then carry on the evening.
Yeah.
But this, I think it's all coming back to like the ships. When I worked
Yeah,
on,
definitely.
when I was on the ships, obviously 7 days a week, guests are coming on. Hey, come join us. Come sit down, have a drink. It's all right. It's on the house. Oh, I've got all inclusive. It's cool. We just want to be seen with you guys because you're like the cool, fun stuff. I mean, I don't know how they treated you, but I'm joking. That was generally the
It
way. So
depends. Photographers would generally be rated,
yeah.
particularly on the American ships. So, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. There was one or two ships where it was a better experience than others,
Did
but
you have a
generally at Carnival.
did you have a similar drinking thing though, like when you were drinking every single day?
Yeah, I mean, there were a
So,
couple of times. One time was at Carnival where I just kind of had to cut myself off because it was just on a rocky road where you just kind of go, do you know what? This is kind of out of control. Like quite a lot of people would sort of just go on a detox occasionally, but for me particularly, I mean, look, when I started at Carnival, I was 17.
you were
Uh,
17.
so hear me out on this. I
How's that
joined the Vic.
legal? It's not like
Well,
it's not like
it
joining
was.
the
That's the
army.
thing.
It's not like
It
joining the
wasn't.
army in World War II and you're just trying to get away from the family.
So I joined the Victory in Porto Trieste in northeast Italy
Yeah.
when I was 17 and 50 weeks. They were initially querying whether I could sail, gone through all the recruitment and everything, and then they decided that they were going to let me sail because I turned 18 on the crossing.
Fair enough.
So when we hit New York, I turned 18, so I
Yeah.
could work for Carnival.
But this was on
Um,
an American cruise ship, so you have to
yeah.
be 21 to drink anyway.
Now, back then, I don't know how it worked. When you were in international waters, you could drink. Like, certainly we could anyway. I don't
All
know if the
right.
rules have changed since or what, but when you like, we were in Hawaii at one point, In fact, that was when I was at Celebrity. So we were in Hawaii when I worked for Celebrity Cruises and got off the ship. And even though I was over 21 at that point, I couldn't drink because I didn't look old enough and didn't have a driver's license. The ship had my passport. But certainly at Carnival, we were going into ports like Key West. Couldn't drink in Key West because at that point I was 18 and didn't look anywhere near 21. You know, it was one of the pitfalls, I suppose. Yeah, it was an interesting experience.
When did you
That's for
start
sure.
drinking in the UK?
Well, that was the other thing. I didn't really start drinking until I was sort of 17 in the UK, and a bit of a running joke between some of my friends that I can't drink anyway. I'm a bit of a lightweight, so yeah, going on ships is probably not the best answer for that, to be
Well,
honest. So.
but this is the thing, like, because obviously you're going to bed with a couple of drinks in your belly every night, and then the next morning you have to be up, you have to be out, you have to be
Yeah.
working. So I developed a bit of a gag reflex, if you can call it that. Whereas, like, before I'd go to bed, I would go into the bathroom, I would bring up all the liquid, and I'd say good night, and I'd go to bed, and I wouldn't have a hangover in the morning. But it's like so many years ago that I used to do that. And even now, to this day, if I've been out with my friend and we've had a few drinks, we go back to his, we have a few more drinks, and then we get to that point where we can no longer stand the sight of each other and it's like it's time to go to bed. Okay, let me just go to the bathroom. Bleh! Come back. Good night. It's still it's never left me. And it's like I just spent all that money to feel like, a bit out of my own body for for an evening.
Yeah.
And then it just all comes up again. My liver will thank me in years to come.
Yeah, yeah. Someone told me long after I'd left ships that the liver is probably one of the only parts of your body that will regenerate itself. So you're probably okay once you start drying out a little bit.
Well, I don't know. My brain's still pretty mushy.
Yeah. Well, that joke about there being too much blood in your alcohol system, you know. But yeah, I know that you were talking on the episode with Jay about how cheap the alcohol was. And for anybody that certainly when 2000 it used to be $1 a beer, $1 a shot on a Carnival, which is just crazy.
Well, the last episode I uploaded with Shirley, she worked on ships late 70s, early 80s, only for a short spell, but she could get a bottle of gin for 90p.
Which is insane.
Well, yeah, and then look where we are now. How much are we paying for a pint? How much are we paying for a pint on average in London? 7, 8 quid? That's the average.
I paid 15 for two pints in Wimbledon last week.
And then earlier today,
crazy.
We went to a Wetherspoons pub in Abingdon, and the pint my friend got with his all-day breakfast or whatever was £2.50. And we went to the other pub we went to that was just a standard pub. It wasn't a Wetherspoons, and they was charging £6-7 a pint. So same stuff, but like how Wetherspoons is different in that regard. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would say as well, I mean, obviously what Shirley was saying, what was it, 90p for a bottle of gin?
Yeah.
So Laura and I worked for Fred Olsen. So I was there for 2-3 years, I think it was. I did all of their ships anyway at the time. And when you signed off, you could buy spirits, litre bottles of spirits. You could get a bottle of Smirnoff for £3.
Jeez.
And that was in 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome, really. Get me going through vacation, anyway, that's for sure.
Was that the staff discount or the duty free thing or slop chest?
It was staff prices, yeah.
Slop chest.
Slop chest, yeah. I wasn't going to say slop chest because not that many people know what it means.
Yeah, no, I've done a bit of research on the slop just because I was writing about it and I wanted to know like the history of the origin of the term.
Okay. I'd only heard of it at Fred Olsen. I'd never heard of it anywhere else.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's like the slop trade is essentially what back in the day was responsible for mass-produced one-size-fits-all able-bodied seamen. So they would all have this stuff that was made of shoddy recycled wool. That became known as the slop trade, which went on to start some kind of mad union strike that was, nationwide, and it stood to undermine a lot of industry in terms of like getting paid fairly for your work and stuff.
Got you.
But the slop trade is essentially, also not just your clothing for your work, but your prerequisites like your fags and your alcohol as well.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense, is that? Yeah.
It's like the basic gist of that industry.
But what was really strange, so I'd gone from, and you'll know at Thompson we had crew bars. So I'd gone from companies that, all had crew bars. I'd done Carnival, Celebrity, a little cruise line, little Greek cruise line called Festival, which I almost forgot about, and then Thomson, and then Saga, and then ended up at Fred Olsen. And everywhere had, at the very least, a crew bar or an officer's bar, but then ended up on Fred Olsen, who didn't have any sort of bars on board. The story was that Fred Olsen Sr. didn't agree with having a place where crew could go and essentially get hammered.
Fred was against it.
I kind of understood. That was what I'd heard anyway, and I kind of understood that.
Mr. Olsen.
But what was really strange was then that they had slot chest, and you could go and buy a crate of beer or whatever. Now you imagine how many crew were on board. Let's just say, for argument's sake, 300 crew were on board, and they could all go and buy a crate of beer a couple of times a cruise. So the guy would drink that somewhere. So it went from an environment that had officers' bars and staff bars and crew bars, but didn't like cabin parties, to an environment where there were no bars other than public bars, which effectively encouraged cabin parties. I just found that whole mentality quite interesting, really, to coin a phrase. But yeah, maybe strange, but there you go.
Maybe old Mr. Fred Olsen was trying to protect his twin daughters.
No comment. Who knows? I didn't even know he had two daughters, to be honest.
No, I was making a reference to the Olsen twins.
The Olsen, yeah, of course.
Mary Kate and Ashley.
Yeah.
Obviously, those aren't his daughters, right? I mean, they could be. They could be. I don't know. I just did connected the dots there. Just trying to figure out.
Very clever, Sam. Yeah. I missed that one.
No, it's all right. What we got? We've got 15 years basically. 10 years in the industry.
10 years, yeah.
15 years almost out of it. We worked in the photography for 5 and the short excursion for 5.
Yeah.
So I get that.
So what happens at sea stays at sea, unless you've left sea.
Unless you come on DeckTales. But let's get into yours.
Team up with a question.
Okay, so let's talk about your experiences. Do you have a standout moment that has you going, "Well, that was close," or I dodged a bullet there, or that scary shit, basically?
Yeah.
Whether it was storm related or passenger encounters.
I mean, it's obviously at 10 years on board, give or take. I kind of seen the vast majority of things. The ships that I worked on took me everywhere except for the Far East. So I have seen hurricanes or ports in hurricanes that are prepped for hurricanes to hit. It's quite topical, obviously. There's a Cat 4 on collision course with Barbados and Grenada currently. So one of my old hotel managers, Peter, he's on Grenada at the minute, and he's put some things on his Instagram earlier on, kind of battening down the hatches.
I was literally just about to say those words.
Yeah, but it's a funny thing because you automatically associate prep for a hurricane with, palm trees being bent backwards, windows all boarded up. And I have seen that, in San Juan in 2000, it was just like that. Palm trees bent backwards, kind of waiting for that storm to fully hit. But I've also seen it in Mexico, in Cozumel, where it's just still. And there's a hurricane on its way, but there's just nothing. There's no breeze. There's no nothing.
It's the calm before the storm, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. A couple of cliches right off the bat.
No, but it is like an eeriness to the sort of the calm that it is.
Yeah.
It's brewing.
I mean, I can't remember. I think was it Jay that mentioned the code words, or it might have been you that mentioned the code words on board. And for various things, security, medical emergency, fire, and everything else. And again, I've kind of seen all of them really. Probably the worst, I suppose. I slept through. We were in Livorno.
Oh yeah,
we were in Livorno on a bit of a surprise overnight. I'll not mention the ship's name just for the sake of it. Then there can be no association.
Now he's scared.
No, he's squirming. And it was a surprise overnight, and we went out and we got absolutely destroyed. We got absolutely hammered.
They're a rarity, overnights. They're not often.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously I'd seen my fair share over the 10 years, but this one was pretty unique in that it was a surprise overnight. Nobody was expecting it. We'd gone in for some ship's repairs to be done. So we were in Livorno. Tours weren't leaving until the day after. And I went out and got absolutely destroyed. And the following morning, I don't even know what time I got back to the ship. I don't know how I got back on board. And the following morning, I woke up and my phone was ringing in my cabin. I was Shorex manager at the time, so it's the kind of buck stopped with me if those tours didn't go. The problem for me was that myself, my assistant, the cruise director, we'd all done the same thing. We'd all got absolutely annihilated, and we were all late for work the following morning. So I mean, you can't hide the fact that you're absolutely hammered the morning after. You just can't.
Yeah.
Your bloodshot eyes and everything,
Yeah, as alcohol seeping out of every pore in your skin.
So I got out of bed, I got dressed as quick as I could, put my sunglasses on, grabbed my radio, and got to the quayside. Tried to get as far away from the gangway as I could, which I needed to do anyway for the coaches, but tried to maintain a little bit of distance between myself and the port agent as well.
Oh, I thought you meant the guests, but the port agent.
They were gonna figure it out anyway. And it turned out that there'd been a fire in the galley overnight, and pretty much everybody that went out was either not on board for it or had been passed out, should we say, and had slept through this code word that had been called. And from what I was told, it was quite a bad fire as well.
Really? So this is whilst you were docked. They had the alarms going?
There's no general emergency alarm. I don't think it was. I wouldn't have known if there was. But yeah, there was.
Well, so I'm guessing
it was bad. It was probably one of the worst nights, Sam.
Yeah, but so somebody obviously told you this like the next day, like, oh, that
the
was
morning after. Yeah.
That was a scary fire, wasn't it? And you're like, what fire? We didn't start a fire. It was a fire at the disco. You should have seen my moves. Ow, chicka chicka.
The funny thing was the hotel manager would have jumped at the chance to have got rid of me, that's for sure. I was not her favourite Shorex member of staff, that's for sure.
They didn't get rid of you? You managed to pull it off?
No, not on that cruise line. In fact, there was only one ship. I think I said earlier on, I've never been fired off a ship. There was one cruise ship that early on in my career, I think I was 22, 23. I was told that I can either go on vacation, I'll be sent on vacation. So, it was, I think it was very immature at that time. And, I'm old enough and man enough now to realize that, I think, again, you talked about this before, what you learn on ships. And I think the amount of growing up that I did between 2000 and 2010 from all of the experiences is a bit surreal now looking back.
Well, you grew up fast because you were, problem solving like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
To pardon my French.
Yeah.
But it's
just sink or swim,
Yeah, another nautical term.
Do you know what? You should just keep count of these. You need a little counter in the corner.
Yeah. Sort of nautical pun tally. Did you? So the scariest moment was you sleeping through a fire. Come on, that's not.
I think it's got to be up there. I saw.
So when they told you the severity of the fire the next day. The realization that you've just slept through a fairly serious event, and one that you probably should be aware of and alert to. But was there anyone that was injured at all?
I don't think so. I think it was it came about because someone had gone back on board drunk, and they decided that they were going to make themselves a midnight snack. But yeah, it's
in their cabin with a pair of
no, this was in the galley. This was in the galley. Someone had gone back and fired up one of the fryers, and it's
fancied a late night toasty.
bad times.
And here's me thinking it was someone that desperate they was like making a cheese sandwich with like their hair straighteners or something. In their cabin.
Times, desperate measures.
Well, you did some people did cook all sorts in their cabin, like using various means. Did you ever see anything like that?
No, I don't think so.
I think
generally it's the stuff that we had. Somebody put cottoned on. Somebody had suggested to me that cold McDonald's cheeseburgers is the food of champions if the options are lacking. So I cottoned onto that. Probably, I don't know, not too far off the finish line in my career at sea.
Really?
That was quite nice. When you're 6-7 beers deep and you go back to your cabin and there's a cold cheeseburger in the fridge, a McDonald's cheeseburger as well, I should add.
Oh, okay.
So that's a winner. Other things, so I'd seen a water spout, tornado over water. Water funnel, water spout. That was quite interesting, more than scary, because I'd never seen one before. Didn't know what it was. So that was quite interesting.
How would you describe a water spout? Because I think
Oh,
as soon as you said that, I thought of Incy Wincy bloody spider.
no, it's literally like a tornado over water. So it's just the water funnel. I think water funnel, water spout, something like that. Anyway,
Yeah, well,
I'd seen that
Incy Wincy spider climbed up the water spout.
spout. Yeah, I think it's something different in America. That's for sure. Um,
These Americans.
what else? I'd seen security storm a ship because there's drugs on board
Oh,
in Germany, off of the coast of Iceland, or sailing between Iceland and the Faroes on a tiny, tiny ship. The ship was going up and down, and then the rear props kept coming out of the water, so and you could hear it. You could hear the props going around. That was quite scary when you're not used to it.
mm.
It was really rough seas. I think on the Saga Rose, if you can see this on YouTube as well. So on the Saga Rose, we were in the stormy seas in the Canaries, and we had one of the what a rib is, right? The boats, the
Oh,
inflatable boats.
yeah.
So there was a rib that got lifted off the forward deck and put through a cabin window
Oh, wow.
at the forward of the ship. Full on lifted it up. That was just crazy.
It's
Bomb
impressive as well
scaring.
that an inflatable boat could dent a fucking, cabin porthole.
Yeah, I mean, oh, it's the engine that went
Yeah,
through the portal,
the
like
engine component.
bomb scaring Trinidad or Tobago, I think it was.
Oh,
Illegal immigrants off the
Wait,
South of
go do
Spain.
one at a time in a bit more detail. You're checking them off like you've got a story for each one, but then you're not telling us anything.
There's no story. There's just events that you remember.
Oh, okay. So they had bomb scare, well, bomb
I
drills.
mean, the bomb scare was pretty real because we were mustered in the gangway area, ready to go ashore because they were talking about getting the passengers off.
Right.
Essentially, call had gone in and the ship was about to set sail. Call had gone into the port authorities to say there's a bomb in the port, and should be careful using words like that, right?
It might help the
People are
algorithm.
listening. Yeah, and we were down in the gangway area. The security had pulled the gangway. The captain was losing his mind because he wanted the gangway back out. He never asked for it in the first place. And in the end, it just turned out to be elsewhere in the port. So we were cleared to sail, and yeah, there was no explosion, thankfully, and the rest is history in that one. But it's still kind of one of those things that you remember.
Yeah.
I've got a list of ships next to me, Sam. That's all, and I'm just kind of reeling stuff off of that as I think of it. Now, one thing
Yeah.
wasn't scary, but it was pretty significant to the company, to the ship. So, did you do Alaska?
I didn't, but I would have loved to
Okay.
have done Alaska.
So I only did one season in Alaska, and it was memorable. So I
Mm.
was on a ship called the GTS Summit for celebrity cruises. It's the only ship I worked on for celebrity, and I did two contracts. Second contract was up in Alaska, as well as a photographer. So we were doing 7-day northern, 7-day southern out of Vancouver,
Hmm.
Vancouver, Seaward, Vancouver. And it was pretty, like the itinerary was pretty sweet. If I remember rightly, Ketchikan, Juneau, Sitka, Glacier Bay, and Glacier Bay is kind of where this story goes. Now, we're moving house at the minute, so I would have had this out to show you because I got a copy of the Anchorage Daily News, which we made the front page of the Anchorage Daily News. So
Anchorage is the place in Alaska.
Yeah.
Okay. It sounds like a cruise ship's cruise news. The
Well,
The Anchorage
I get that.
Express.
The cruise passengers would get off in Seaward or get on in Seaward, having done the train journey, train excursion beforehand or after the ship, after the cruise. Anyway, so we were going into Glacier Bay, and the ships generally, from what I remember, were under pilot control at that point because of the waters. So we're going in, and there's no real issues, but the ship commonly lurched from one side to the other. Listed from one side to the other. Icebergs. Okay, you're in Glacier Bay. There are icebergs everywhere.
True.
So we didn't know this anyway. That we felt something hit the ship, and that was all we really knew until the morning after, when a general meeting got called in the theatre in the main show lounge. Now this doesn't happen. It was the only time in the 10 years at sea that I can remember it happening.
And the ship sank and you slept through
it. Not quite. I probably would have done at some point. So the captain comes on stage and tells everybody that during the transit of Glacier Bay the day before, the ship had hit an iceberg.
Yeah.
The iceberg ripped a hole in the side of the ship, basically. So we weren't going anywhere at that point. Now, long story short, we ended up in Seaward for 2 days, I think it was. They had to fly out fly out Lloyd's from London to assess the ship. There were divers going down and checking what damage was and if the ship was seaworthy and everything else. And off the back of it, we ended up, I think the week after, we ended up back in Vancouver. So the cruise itinerary obviously had to change. We ended up back in Vancouver. We overnight in Vancouver, then sail back to Seaward, back to Vancouver, and then we overnight again. And they ended up having to replace some of the props again at the back of the ship, hence the two overnights.
Yeah.
So, but it was pretty much impressive what they could do by way of repairs in what is effectively a wet dock situation.
Well, that's it. So do you know how many watertight compartments got breached?
I'd be speculating. Okay. I wouldn't want to speculate because I'd probably get it wrong. If I said it was 3, it was 5, or if I said it was 5, it was 2. You know.
Well, so, yeah. Every ship has different amount of compartments, and
exactly.
Was it like there was 5 on the Titanic and 3 of them got breached, so they were going down or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
But then also the watertight compartments weren't even watertight. Like water would come in and then it would spill over the top because it wasn't a secure door. It wasn't watertight. So we've learned how to make our watertight stations or sections actually watertight now.
Exactly.
And if you've got one section filled, then you just you offload a ballast tank to kind of
exactly to balance it out. But that was. I wouldn't say scary. I don't, because nobody really knew what was going on.
You heard the actual.
Yeah, you felt it, yeah. But it was fairly routine. Like you're used to that kind of thing happening in those waters, so it's not really at that time. You're not really thinking of anything that's something's gone wrong or anything like that. So, but I mean that's one of 2 things that stand out. The other was I think we were in Cyprus and we were doing something around the Middle East. So we were doing Cyprus, Egypt, Jordan. Jordan was the last stop. So we did Petra from Aqaba. And one of the lifeboats, I think they were one of the davit arms that held the lifeboat up gave. And the lifeboat just kind of at one end pretty much just fell down.
What, was this in the middle of like a drill?
I think they were doing some maintenance on the lifeboats, maybe on the davit arms, but certainly on one of the lifeboats. But the thing was, it was a fairly old ship. Yeah, this ship was not a spring chicken by any stretch.
Was there a crew on board the lifeboat?
So, from what I remember, no. But there were crew in and around the davit arms, obviously. So I don't think anybody was seriously hurt. But it was another one of those events that you kind of. I think we were in the office at the time, so you see the lifeboat kind of come down. So something's gone wrong, and then the next minute people are running around like crazy. I think the bosun was running up and down, kind of yelling down his radio and stuff like that. So it's another one of those things that you just kind of go, wow,
With the thing you were saying about like the fire and all of this, and no one was injured, but have you ever had any deaths on board?
All the time.
Okay.
I mean, look, I worked at sea for 10 years. To say nobody died would just be naive, It happens all the time.
Were any of them in any way particularly comical?
I don't think so. I mean, no. There's no real way for me to answer that one. It's not really.
They do happen.
I was never that close to any of it going on. I mean, you just kind of figure that. Look, particularly where I worked for Fred Olsen, I worked for Saga.
Oh yes, you have to have hip replacement as a basic kind of requirement to get on board.
So, I mean, it's kind of a prereq almost that someone is going to bite the dust at some point during one of those cruises, without being disrespectful. It's of an age, the passengers are of an age.
Well, you can be respectful by telling a disrespectful story and leaving people's names out of it.
So, look, I can tell you one soundbite is that, so I was on the Saga Rose. And I was only on there. I think they had me down to do the World Cruise sort of post January. So I was on there over Christmas. I think I got called in last minute. Someone wasn't able to fill the contract, so they rang me and said, "Well, we go out and do this Christmas cruise for us." I said, "Yeah, no problem." Had I stayed on there, I would never have gone to Thompson because I got the gig at Thompson more or less straight away afterwards. But the hotel manager that was going to be on for the World Cruise did not like me. It's just, same as previous, really. Previous sea fire story. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to dodge this bullet. I'm not going to go and do the world cruise anyway. Some people thought I was mad. My mum at the time, she rest in peace. She thought I was absolutely bonkers, batshit, basically, for not going on a world cruise for that reason. I don't know. Anyway, so we didn't have an embarkation duty, but we opened the desk as passengers were coming on, and that way they could come and get an excursion form, come talk to us about trips and things like that. Anyway, this old chap's come on board, and I've welcomed him on board and sort of said to him, where's your lovely wife? Have you lost her? And he sort of said, yeah, I did actually about 5 years ago. So I couldn't figure out how to get my foot in my mouth quick enough. So I just kind of moved on and with the joke said, well, do you know what? Let's try and find you a new one then.
Flip up a lip, old bean.
Listen, he thought it was funny anyway. So yeah, try and dig yourself out of a hole. But yeah, it was quite funny. But like I said, there's your soundbite, Sam. There's your comical foot in mouth gag. On one cruise line, we got to Iceland and someone had forgotten to do the clock change. We rocked up and they pulled the shell door open and there was no gangway for us because someone had forgotten to do the clock change. So we ended up in the port of Reykjavik an hour early with no gangway. So they got the gangway open with no gangway. That's quite funny.
So people have booked excursions and they couldn't go ashore to enjoy themselves. There's a knock-on effect when that doesn't get taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, realistically speaking, we just sort of sat there for an hour waiting to do what we needed to do. What else can you do, really, if the port authorities are not aware that we're there and they're all expecting us an hour later than we've got there? That's just slightly farcical, really, in the volume of people that are involved in that clock change. That we have a navigation officer on board, and they kind of didn't notify everybody on board that the clock's changed by an hour. Slightly poor, if you ask me, but there you go.
Everyone's human.
But yeah, I mean, we didn't have tours that generally went wrong because, like I said, my excursion team were very well run. I can say that now.
It wasn't a bad egg amongst you.
Yeah, no. Do you know what? We were organised. We generally had things down. In terms of, we had a few people ask for private tours and stuff like that, but you accommodate that. There's ways and means. You've got agents, you've got contacts ashore to accommodate those sorts of things. So when they want to deviate from the usual excursion list, St. Petersburg was probably one of the most interesting places because unless you've got a visa in St. Petersburg, you're not going anywhere. And quite a few people would fall into that trap of thinking they could just rock up and walk off and do what they wanted to do. You must have done the Baltics.
I didn't get to do the Baltics. No, and I regret it because it was always one of Alaska and the Baltics are like two places I would have loved to have gone to, or like the Antarctic or something as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Baltics were great depending on where you went to. St. Petersburg, I was talking to somebody this weekend about this, and not just about St. Petersburg, about places like Mexico, because I think for the first 6 months of my career at sea, we were in Mexico every week or every 10 days into Cozumel. And you start taking places for granted.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily appreciate, particularly when you're younger, you don't fully appreciate places you didn't go and explore. And sort of talk to one of my friends now about it, the fact that I travel differently now than I did 24 years ago. I do a lot more research, a lot more reading into what I do now than I did 24 years ago, where I would just rock up, go and find a bar, go and find some Wi-Fi or an internet cafe and probably go and get hammered. And I think you will probably speak.
Whereas now you'll research the bars in more detail.
Exactly. Where does the 2 for 1s? Where is happy hour?
Yeah, which is who sells the highest proof alcohol?
So, but yeah, I mean, it's I think it was different back then. When you started doing certain itineraries over and over again, you took it for granted almost. And the same could be said for just life at sea. Working on life at sea, you kind of take it for granted a little bit.
Yeah, no, we did. We're all living in that bubble, aren't we? So we tend to just think everything is fine, everything is grand, nothing is going to go wrong. And the best times are had when everyone's just completely tanked up.
Hammered.
And everyone doesn't really give a shit. And it's like anything can happen. It's all very scandalous, you could say sometimes.
Yeah.
There's a little
exactly.
It's a soap opera at sea.
Absolutely. And I think when you talk about actually life on board, it's fairly, or I'll choose my words carefully, but be as blunt as possible. It's fairly incestuous. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows somebody that knows somebody else. It's a story about, I can drop some names in here. These are fine. So when I joined the Thompson Spirit, I don't know if you remember, but Sea Diamond sank in Santorini, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with you.
No, absolutely nothing to do with me or Good Bravos or anything. So we joined the Thompson Spirit early to stand it up early. I think the ship was taking over from the Sea Diamond's itinerary for a few cruises. So we joined it as effectively passengers to go on and set up for Thompson's summer season. Now, you and I have got fairly regular names. There's nothing spectacular about it. So we were talking, I forget who it was. It was probably casino staff or shop staff or salon staff who we would always get on like a house on fire with anyway. And this name pops up, this Hungarian name, Csaba. Okay, now I'd not come across many Csabas. Now this is 2007. So I worked with a guy called Csaba in 2003, 4 years prior, and a gap as well. So I'd left as a photographer, which is where we worked together, and rejoined as Shorex. And people start mentioning this name, Csaba. Oh yeah, Csaba's coming. And I'm like, this cannot be a coincidence. This guy, it has to be Csaba. Now, Csaba apparently is quite a fairly common Hungarian name, but it's the only Hungarian that I'd ever met called Csaba and that worked on cruise ships. And sure enough, the photographer that I'd worked with from 4 years prior joins the ship. We got absolutely annihilated. And there's a theme developing here, right?
Was Csaba by any chance a bounty hunter in the trade?
He was not a bounty hunter, no. He
Csaba the Hutt.
Yeah, Csaba, yeah, very funny. These are all going straight over, Sam.
I'm trying.
So Csaba comes on board, and from what I remember, there was the passengers that would have been on Sea Diamond were predominantly American or South American, Central American. Anyway, I remember getting into a drinking contest with some Mexicans at the bar. I forget if it was like the Disco or something like that on the Thompson Spirit. I was rather ill the following morning. I didn't show up for work. I was, very, very ill, to say the least. The reason I tell you this story is that what was I on the Black Prince? So you jump forward another 2 years and long after the Thompson Spirit. And I'm walking through the streets of Lisbon on the way back to the shuttle bus. And I hear this Hungarian get shouted out of a taxi. And sure enough, Csaba is leaning out of this taxi in Lisbon in the main square shouting at me. And it's the three occasions where this guy's popped up in my life. And that's kind of why I say that everybody knows somebody on cruise ships. So, but yeah,
But Csaba is one of those guys who just keeps. Well, he's got a reputation, or what? Like he just pops up at the most.
Everybody seems to know him. But yeah, and that was the other thing. While I was at sea, he just kind of kept popping up.
Is he a bit of a nuisance or a bit of a ladies' man?
Nah, he's definitely a bit of a ladies' lad, but he's a good guy as well. Like got on like a house on fire. So.
What department did you say he was in?
He's a photographer.
Hungarian photographer.
So we worked together as photographers at Celebrity, and then and then he was a photographer that came on board.
Is he on your Facebook?
Listen, I don't use Facebook.
Well, how did we connect? I've got your WhatsApp. I know that.
WhatsApp and Instagram, yeah. So that's pretty much all I use now. I sacked off Facebook. I don't particularly think it's great for your mental health.
Well, any of them are pretty bad for your mental health if you just spend enough time on them.
Exactly. Without going down a rabbit hole when you multiply that across all of the platforms.
Yeah, I'm on all of them.
Yeah.
Did you have any charter cruises?
Yeah, actually. So when I was on the Spirit of Adventure, we had a French charter, which had its ups and downs. Not like that. It was a bit of a funny one because I don't really speak any languages. I speak the odd word of certain languages. So when you've got, I think that we had sort of 3 2-day charters for the supermarket Carrefour.
Oh yeah.
So it was sponsored by Carrefour. Or arranged by Carrefour.
Don't tell me you had all of the girls on the roller skates come on board.
That would have been amazing.
Do you know them? The checkout girls on roller skates in Carrefour.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah, they were good.
Do you know? Did I see that in Tenerife? I'm sure it was in Tenerife.
Yeah.
Saw that. I'd forgotten about that until you just said it, actually.
I just when you said Carrefour, it's immediately the first thing that came to my brain.
It was interesting just because like the staff that they brought on, this was when I was a photographer as well. So no, it's sure right. The staff that they brought on were all they weren't Carrefour, so they brought on their own DJ and they were all very much tailored towards the French guests. And then we were just asked to help out where we could help out, essentially. So yeah, I mean, I think that was the only charter I was ever involved in, which seems a bit strange, really, after 10 years at sea.
But Carrefour weren't well, so they were sponsoring it, but it wasn't for their staff, was it?
I don't think it was for their staff, no, but it was branded sort of Carrefour charters. So, but that ship lent itself to that kind of thing. It was, I think, 500 passengers. That's what it was. Quite a small ship.
So it was quite commonly rented out for groups to do their own little niches.
I wouldn't have said common because it was the only time that it was done on that ship. And likewise, it was still under the Saga umbrella, but it was sort of rebranded as Spirit of Adventure. So it was tailored towards sort of 50-year-old people. And it would do different types of cruises. It would do the Baltics, the Black Sea. It would do Turkey, the Greek islands, the Middle East.
Lots of places.
Not typical cruise itineraries, basically.
And
the excursions themselves were very different from what you would normally do as well.
Were there any of the upper echelon of society on board any of these ships? Any of the celebrities we know about?
No, it was. I think so I met not while I was on the Spirit of Adventure, but I met Jim Bowen. He cruised with Fred Olsen quite a lot.
I know that name, but it's not jumping out.
It's a Bullseye host. He's not alive anymore, but yeah, Jim Bowen.
He was a regular cruiser.
Jim Bowen, yeah, he's regular on Fred Olsen, yeah.
Oh, did he do the game show on board?
No, because I think he just came for a holiday. He would regularly engage with like crew and staff and passengers. So, but no, he didn't. I don't think he ever did any of the shows. I might be wrong, but I certainly never saw anything like that. I never met him, but Walter Cronkite came on the Summit.
That's another name that I've just gone.
Okay. News anchor, really famous news anchor.
Yeah.
And then the other one was on the Spirit of Adventure. I met Betty Boothroyd.
You keep giving me names that I'm not going crazy for. Betty Boothroyd is who?
She's the ex-speaker of the House of Commons. I think it was the Commons anyway.
Oh, okay.
But the thing was, she was from, I guess, my adopted hometown. So that was kind of the other thing. So
with this, it's weird because you think, obviously, as a celebrity or something, a cruise ship is like your idea of hell because you go on holidays to get away from the public. Unless, of course, your limelight is fading, so you go on a cruise ship to kind of like try to
reinvigorate, right?
Boost your numbers again.
I suppose it depends on what type of ship you go on as well. If you're going to go on one of the small ones, or if you're going to go on one of the really big ones.
Yeah. Were there any forbidden romances that you care to share us with?
When I was very young and stupid, I did. So there's the whole saying, right? Nothing finer than waking up with a Steiner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one, right? Well, you must have done. You were at Carnival, so you must have done. Yeah, I mean, it's very much an American saying, though. So, but I know that one of your was it Ian that was on?
Did the Conan episode.
The Conan thing. So I think when I was at Carnival, I don't actually know. I got away with it, to be honest. I did hook up with one of the Steiner's girlfriends. So that was probably, and she was on board cruising. So
wait, what?
Yeah,
you got that with the Steiner's girlfriend?
Yeah. So yeah, that was just probably. I didn't get into trouble for it.
Well, so the girlfriend was a passenger.
Yeah.
Well, so they were a lesbian couple.
Yeah.
And you got okay. Is there more to this, or is this just?
No, that's
this is
that's
you bragging. That's
as far as it went. So you asked.
I did.
So that's probably as forbidden as it got, really.
Oh, okay.
I probably got into trouble once or twice because of women on ships, but nothing that would have got me fired.
They're the sirens of the sea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, like I said, I ended up marrying one, so that's the biggest instance of trouble.
Well, that's the biggest takeaway from your time at sea, isn't it? You got a wife out of it. Well done.
Yeah, exactly.
You've been together how many years?
So we met in 2009. We got married in 2016. So yeah.
Oh, that's long. It's a long marriage. May it last for many more years.
Well, I think I know enough people, and I've been there before myself, that where it just fizzles out as well. So It happens a lot, people, and you hear people say, "Oh no, it's going to be different for us," and it just doesn't. It just goes. And I think the ones that last are the ones where people come away and have a proper crack at it. Yeah, because the funny thing was
they want to prove people wrong.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this, that we only were on the same ship for 3 months, and I'd already planned. So obviously you had Gove on here a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
So I'd already planned to go out to South Africa for reasons I won't interlude with at this point, and dropped Gove a message and sort of said, look, I kind of got a flight ticket here booked. Are you at a loose end? Do you fancy kind of hanging out for a few weeks? And he was courteous enough and gracious enough to host me for a couple of weeks up in Joburg and then Durban. His family were amazing. So I hung out with Gove for a couple of weeks and his friends. And then I flew down to Cape Town, had a week down in Cape Town and then came back. And I'd sort of said to Laura, look, this is it for me now. This next contract will be my last. And I'm thinking about going to New Zealand. And I said, this was before I left the ship to go to South Africa, and said to her, just, sleep on it. Let me know what you think. And she didn't. She just said, yeah, straight away. So you got to make a go of it. And that's what we did. So we did New Zealand and then back home, and then, yeah, rest history pretty much.
So where
it does work for some.
Where did you pop the question?
New Zealand.
You did it in New Zealand. Which part?
Yeah. There's a funny, I've got a few friends that are Kiwis, and whenever they're here where we got engaged, it makes them laugh because, it's kind of a bit of a random place, I suppose. A place called New Plymouth, which is down on the...
South Island?
No, it's on the North Island. I want to say on the south coast of the North Island, but it's not that far south. Sort of southwest, I think it is. So, yeah, that was kind of where we got engaged, really. Nothing glamorous. I didn't have a ring or anything. I just kind of popped the question.
Oh, okay. So... That's cool, though. No, lovely. Was there a most fun excursion that you've ever done that sort of leaps out at you as in or even, no, we said there weren't many, your team were good, they were shit hot.
Yeah, exactly. My team were on it. The two that jump out are Alcatraz and Petra. You went to two totally different tours.
The prison?
Yeah.
Well, they're doing cruise ship. They're doing cruise ship tours of Alcatraz prison.
The only time I've ever been to San Francisco was in 2003 on a repo cruise, I think it was.
Repositioning.
And we stopped in San Fran on the way to San Diego, I think it was. And yeah, the second half of the day was a crew tour to Alcatraz. So we got on a ferry across there, and you kind of pick up the headset, and it's this guided tour of like the inmates and old wardens and things of Alcatraz. Pretty surreal, really.
This is we should establish, because I didn't even know this, but like Alcatraz is definitely not still a working prison.
No, it's not. No, definitely not still a working
prison.
Imagine
that you're taking the guests in, and there's like all these surly inmates behind bars, and then like all these passengers are just like smile.
Yeah, no, definitely not working.
And then
prison.
you're in there with your camera. You're like, just squeeze in next to the bars.
Yeah,
get a big group shot together.
Oh dear, but yeah, it's definitely not still a working prison. Absolutely amazing excursion to go on. Absolutely amazing place to visit.
Where is that? In San Francisco, in mainland, obviously. No.
Well, it's an island in the Bay of San Francisco. So.
Oh yeah. Just how far off the coast is it?
I'm sure it's something like 3 or 4 miles. Might be more without fully looking into it. But
it's a fair swim.
Yeah. Well, some people are alleged to have made the swim, but there's no evidence to support that. So
what's that in meters? 3-4 miles.
Oh, I have no idea.
Hey Google.
No idea.
What's 3.5 miles in meters? 5,632 meters. Ooh, I mean, that's the average of how far it is. When you consider an Olympic swimming pool is 50 meters, and I went to my local one last week, and it's a 25-meter pool, so half Olympic. I did 80 laps. So what's that? 25.
That's quite good.
25 times 80. That's 2,000, and so that's less than half of the 5,600. So you're looking at about 100. You're basically looking at about over 100 laps of 50 meters in an Olympic swimming pool. So if you're of a peak physical condition, and obviously I had not peak physical condition, I'll do 10 laps and take a minute or two breather before I continue.
Yeah. But factor in water temperatures and currents as well.
Yeah, all that stuff. That's a long journey to swim.
Yeah, it's a long,
And,
long
and
swim.
and it's cold water as well, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, hypothermia
Um,
probably set in.
if there's a Morgan Freeman, I guess,
You,
documentary
you
about
like,
escapes from prisons, and it's probably on YouTube anyway. I watched it
yeah,
on like Sky Documentaries.
of course you did. You love that man.
Love Sky Documentaries.
No,
Love
you love
Morgan Freeman
Morgan Freeman especially. Yeah.
as well.
Well, so
um,
you said about the Alcatraz thing. What was the other one you said that you liked?
Petra. Petra is
Petra.
the other one that springs to mind. Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that the one with the half crescent canyon?
Probably, but you'd probably know it more from the Treasury, the building. It's in Indiana Jones,
Yeah. That's what I was
where it's
thinking it
kind
was.
of down the canyon. And
So it's not
yeah, I
actually
mean,
that
it's
crescent canyon, but that thing at
yeah, I mean,
where the Crusades are inside, where he has to get the Holy Grail.
yeah,
That's
it's surreal when you're walking down the difference between in temperature between the heat and the shadow, or the sun,
mm,
sorry, the sun and the shadow shade. Yeah, so you start
Petra.
off that you're in sort of desert, desert probably loosely, and then you sort of start coming down these like canyons, and then all of a sudden it's so hard to describe. You're walking down these canyons that keep shifting left and right, and then all of a sudden the treasury opens up in front of you,
Oh
and you
wow,
live that real life Indiana Jones moment where he
that's so
sees the
cool.
building in front. It's just crazy. So there's the thing here, you'd probably call it the pyramids effect, because you have certain images built up in your head. In fact, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was younger, I always had this thing. My mind would build up images in my head of something or
Mm.
somewhere. So if you said, like the pyramids, if you use that as an example, the thing to remember about the pyramids is when you go there, you have this image of this hour-long ride into the desert. And in fact, there's nothing further than the truth. Okay. You literally get to what is probably at the time the city limits, and you get to the Sphinx. Okay, now if you get to the Sphinx and turn around, you could see things like KFC across the road.
Is
It's
it?
like that. That's not where I was going with this. But if you ever go into the pyramids and go inside the pyramids, you have certain expectations. And those expectations are blown out the water as soon as you get inside the pyramids, because it's, from
Well,
what I can remember, there's some dark.
have they got a Popeye's chicken in there?
Not in not in there, no. Across the road next to KFC. When you drop down into the pyramids and you kind of go down a chamber and then you climb up and then it opens up into a room, the expectations are straight away to either see some sort of mummy or
Tutankhamun.
hieroglyphics everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just blank. There's nothing there. There's nothing on the walls at all. And so your expectations, your premonitions are just kind of blown right out of the water straight away.
Surely there's some places within the pyramids that have those things.
If there are, then they're not open to the public.
Yeah. Okay.
But going back to Petra, it's a very similar thing with the treasury. You go inside and it's just a fascia. There's nothing actually inside.
How is
So
it?
in the movie, when Indiana Jones goes inside the treasury, he's not actually inside the treasury. He's inside whatever it is, a film set or whatever.
Yeah, probably.
And it's just quite strange how when you've been there and you know that there is nothing inside the treasury, it's just a rock face.
Yeah.
That's it. So,
You're like, oh, Hollywood got me.
but yeah, exactly.
You're hoping to
exactly.
find a crusty old white male knight.
Yeah, no.
You're gonna get face the trials. You're gonna get to hop on the letters to spell out Jesus. The walk when he has to do the penitent man shall pass. The leap of faith. Did you do the leap of faith?
No, I definitely didn't do the leap of faith. Not
They
there
didn't have
anyway.
the leap of faith. You'd think if they'd learned their lesson that they had installed these tiles as a way of weeding out members of the public, like a natural selection.
Yeah. But yeah, Petra is pretty special.
JD, what is one of your most embarrassing moments? Don't say you didn't make any blunders over the 10 years, because I don't believe you.
I'll give you one that's not going to get me into trouble at home.
No, give me one that will.
No. So if you take it all the way back to 24 years ago, I was very green.
Yeah.
I've learned is a new term. I didn't know about that term way back then.
Gove used
Very
it.
green. Me. And I joined the Carnival Triumph, I think it was. Yeah, Carnival Triumph. I transferred from the Victory in New York to the Carnival Triumph. And I'd been trained as a videographer before, or while I was on the crossing, I got trained as a videographer, primarily as a photographer. And
were you shooting in film? No, digital.
Yeah. No, it's film.
It was film.
The crossover came in like 2003, I think. We were still shooting in film, but I think the digital stuff really kind of kicked in beyond 2003, really.
Yeah.
So it was formal night or an informal night. I can't remember which one it was. And I had I showed up to the informal night wearing a formal uniform, and I showed up to the shoot. I was shooting, the big atriums. I showed up to use with a video tripod and a still camera. Now, for any photographers that know, and I know you've had a few on already, including Gov, the top of the tripod is different on a video camera, for a video camera than a still camera. So it meant that having gone down 10 floors from my cabin, because the cabins for photographers were on the 10th floor in the middle of the ship, and the lab was on deck 0, I think it was. So I'd gone in the wrong uniform to the lab, picked up the wrong camera kit to then go up to deck 5. So I was horrifically late for this shoot, and I had a queue of people that had rocked up as well. So it's probably the most embarrassing thing that I'd done from a professional perspective. Anyway.
What about from an unprofessional perspective?
I will share those with you over beers next time I see you.
Seriously? Come on, don't let me down. Give me one. There's got to be one.
Not a chance.
Why?
I've given you some of the worst ones already. When sleeping through a code Bravo on a ship.
Yeah, but that won't get you into trouble. People will just be more impressed, if anything. How drunk were you, dude? Dude, where's my car? It's like, dude, where's my ship?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I never missed a ship. I came close to it once, and that was in Madeira, and they were pulling the gangway when we were walking down the pier. Wouldn't have been our fault. There were 3 of us, 2 photographers, and someone that worked in like an admin type role. Mm-hmm. And we'd been out for beers and something to eat in Madeira, walking down the pier with what we thought half an hour to spare, and they were pulling the gangway. So we got there just in time, literally, just made it.
How about most ridiculous complaints or requests?
I mean, look, I'm not going to repeat some of the stuff that you've had already. I mean, everybody knows, or everybody that worked in the industry knows about the cliche stuff. Are there any elevators that take you from the back to the front of the ship? That was a quirky one. Interesting.
I love them.
It's true though. Like people ask these things. I was on the Imagination in 2000, and there was this thing. I don't know if you had it. So I know that the clientele on certain cruise ships was the word interesting. Let's just say interesting, right?
Interesting, yeah.
But that was the thing. So I'd gone from the Carnival Triumph, where we had quite. I don't know if they did pay a lot of money or not, but the impression was that they paid quite a lot of money, and the families were quite well to do. So certainly around Christmas and Thanksgiving and things, we would have quite big Hispanic communities come on board, and they would treat formal night like a formal night, and it would be for the entire evening, and it was amazing because it kind of delivered on that proper, what I call a cruising experience. But then you go to the Imagination, where for first sitting formal, you've got people still walking around in shorts and flip-flops. And then you get to second sitting, and those people that have been on first sitting are back in shorts and flip-flops. And that's just class was just a world apart. But the thing about the Imagination that we all found the funniest was it got dubbed. And I remember the chief purser at the time signing off a vacation email, sort of saying, I look forward to seeing you all again somewhere on one of the fun ships for another season of Where the Food At cruising, because there would be passengers would come on board, and from sort of 10, 15 yards away, they would yell at you, hey, where the food at? And you can cut that. You can leave it in.
Yeah. But
I'm sure my American friends won't take offense by it.
No, but do you know what? I haven't heard that phrase in a long time. But it was something that I used to hear like on a weekly basis when a guest come up the gangplank, and it's like, yeah, where the food at? Yeah. Okay, give us a second. Let's just get you processed, and then you can go jump in the buffet. What were your favorite game shows, events, or things of that nature at sea? Like, we did some ships had the Crossing the Equator party and things like that.
I didn't get involved in any of that stuff. Because that's the thing. As a photographer, I think we got sent up to photograph it on occasion. Yeah. Do you know what? Dry dock was probably the most interesting thing that I did that wasn't related to either of my roles. Only did it once in Genoa in a freezing cold December. But yeah, I mean, games and things like that, I didn't get involved. But
you're like you're the documentarians. You're not allowed to be involved because someone's got to keep the camera rolling.
Exactly. And even as Shorex, you spend that much time with the guests. I wasn't always that fond of socializing with guests outside of my working hours. It got a little bit different when I took an interest in certain people in certain roles that I would have to socialize out of hours.
So cagey, so cagey.
Sure, teams on board. That's kind of when I started socializing.
There you go. Yeah. Your wife can attest to that, at least. What about if you could go back and change one thing about your time at sea, what would it be?
I think anybody should learn lessons if they look back or talk to their younger selves. In terms of doing things differently, I think if I did anything differently, it may well result in, it's like back to the future effect. It may well result in a different outcome at this day and age. So the main thing, the most important thing, is that I've learned lessons now because of who I was 20 years ago, and spent my life growing up at sea, and I did a lot of growing up over the first 10 years. So that's probably I wouldn't change anything.
Then you wouldn't be who you are.
Exactly that.
Did you ever cross the international date line and have to do the day again? So all the mistakes that you would have made, you got to fucking learn from again.
No, I never did. Crossed the Arctic Circle a few times, but never the date line.
What's the Arctic Circle like when you're crossing that?
Again, there's another ceremony for that, but again, I never got involved in it. So
what's the Arctic Circle ceremony? It's not like the crossing the equator party, is it?
Something about kissing a fish head or something like that.
Oh, that is exactly. Yeah, they do that.
I didn't get too close to it, so but yeah.
I had to bring out a salmon, and then they chucked it in the pool, and I had to go diving for it, and we served it at the buffet later on that day.
Chlorinated and everything. Nice.
Yeah, but they scrubbed it out, they washed it down. JD, thanks for joining me on a Monday night, the day after England scraped through into the quarterfinals of the Euros. This is going to be out in 2 months or so this is irrelevant, and we probably lost anyway, like to Switzerland in the next game. Yeah. We're absolute pessimists at this point. We didn't deserve to go through, but we somehow scraped it. But thank you for spending some time with me this evening.
Cheers for having me on. It's a bit of a different Monday for me. So,
yeah,
nice.
No, it was lovely to see you again after so many months. And even though we only worked together for what you said was only a month, which I actually am kind of in disbelief over, because it felt like, no offense, it felt like longer.
I have that effect on people. It's like a lifetime.
Yeah. I love you and leave you. Have less than a minute, so we've got to say goodbye before we get cut off.
All right, mate. Nice one. I'll catch you soon.
All right, mate. All the best.
Take it easy.
Thanks very much.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers, mate. Good night.
Bye.
So there you have it. That wraps it up for this episode of DeckTales. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've been entertained by the tales of laughter, camaraderie, and the occasional stormy sea, then don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps us to navigate the podcasting waters and continue bringing you these fascinating stories. Before I sign off, if you'd like to share your own stories for future episodes, then I'd love to hear from you. Simply get in touch over the socials, because after all, the best stories often come from our listeners. As we navigate through the waters of life, remember to enjoy the journey as much as the destination, as well as those you choose to share the adventure with. I've been your captain, Sammy Catlin. Until next time, fair winds, smooth sailing, and may your adventures be as unforgettable as those shared here on DeckTales. Bon voyage.